Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I must thank the chairman for inviting me to speak on this important occasion and on this important subject of Atmanirbharta in the defense sector. And while I will talk about aerospace industry in particular, but a lot of overlap happens with the other sectors in terms of all other industrial base. If you look at the security scenario, I think a lot of discussion must have already taken place in terms of what has happened, the security matrix evolving, the kind of threats in our neighborhood, and what is likely in the future. And I will not go into that or repeat that. But if we just look north and look at what should be our future, what is the single most important factor that will determine how well we are capable of fighting the future on our own, it is indigenous capability. And therefore, I feel that this topic is most apt. It is probably the best time to look at these issues very, very seriously and do whatever it takes to ensure that on the indigenous front, in terms of our capability and ability to do the R&D and produce, all aspects are looked after as we move along into the future. Over the last many years, a lot of effort has happened towards, let's say, indigenous capability, be it as a Make in India, which started with DPSUs, but in the last few years, a lot of impetus in terms of R&D, in terms of private sector participation, in terms of MSMEs, leveling the play field, in terms of all the policy matters that needed to be addressed, be it in terms of procurement policy, revision of offset policies to make it better, to allow the private sector and MSMEs to step in better and have some financial base. A lot of effort has gone in, and that has started to show result. That has started to move. But this entire industry is so cost intensive, is so risky in many ways, in terms of the infrastructure required, in terms of the cost, in terms of the risk mitigating aspects, which itself puts higher cost to many of these projects, that it always takes time. So while the intent and a lot of push happened in the last few years, the progress, as I see it, in terms of the reality on ground, things moved slowly. However, many of the policy issues that were revised, and with the DAP getting revised now, with the positive indigenization list coming, two of this list, which puts an import embargo on many of these components that have already been successfully produced, or the systems that have been produced. In terms of the orientation change in our DPSUs to involve the private sector more and more, in terms of the production partners of DRDO, a lot of private sector participation has increased. In terms of the overall ecosystem developing, be it tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 for our towards big projects with HAL or towards DRDO and many of the labs, the effort in the last 2 years has been substantial, I would say. Where are we today? In many of the big projects, we have been hugely successful as far as the aerospace industry is concerned. And I will start with LCA as the leader in this, because that single project has set the baseline in our industrial base in terms of the ecosystem getting organized, the tier 2, tier 3, and many of the small participants getting into this chain of production of R&D and seeing their product succeed and implemented in a project. And having ordered the first 40 LCAs, although there were delays, we can talk about some issues took longer to handle. But as the first and a very, very contemporary fighter aircraft being produced, fly-by-wire, digital in all sense, huge sensor fusion, contemporary weapons and sensors, it is a great achievement. In the aviation field, in the aviation sector, I think LCA should be recognized as the single most game-changing event that has happened over the last 2 decades or so. And its results have now started to flow with the production of initial 40 going past nearly 23 now, and how it has percolated itself into the other supporting industrial base and the private sector and MSMEs. So I think the starting point of our industrial base has been laid, but is it enough? I don't think so. It was enough because as with many of the DPSU's project, the initial participation was less. It was guarded, and although a lot of R&D effort was put in by many of the small players, going into production took time, and a lot of inertia and a lot of impetus in these fields were lost because of that. The next big game-changing event in this field has been our 83 LCA order, which has already gone out now. You are all aware this year, which with 40,000 crores now coming into this industry, and with this R&D based setup, the capability setup that has been achieved with the LCA project, I think this will make a huge influx of financial capability and viability into the system. And in terms of entire aerospace sector setting up, this would really be a huge achievement. So from a very low participation level, I would say, let's say a decade back, we are now in the aerospace sector across the defense fields. We are seeing a huge change and a huge jump. Apart from that, I would like to point out many of the important projects which were very critical in terms of capability development, be it the airborne early warning and control from DRDO, the Netra, the technologies involved, and the radar and the MST kind of resolutions that are required for this kind of product in the air have been successfully solved, which is again a huge milestone. Apart from this, while the manufacturing base was set up through many of the transfer of technology and Make in India projects, be it Su-30s, Hawks, Jaguars earlier before that, the manufacturing capability per se were set up, but the R&D, the other elements required were missing, and these projects have started to build onto that. So this R&D base of DRDO has now percolated down to many of the production partners who not only are partners in R&D but also then take up production. Other projects that are in the pipeline in terms of indigenous base on the aircraft front is HTT-40. In terms of other aircraft, entire modernization plan of the Indian Air Force in the aircraft upgrades is largely indigenous. Be it the Mirage 2000 after the initial aircraft, rest all is being done by HAL. Be it the entire Jaguar upgrade, be it many of the small upgrades that we have undertaken on many of the aircraft systems, and many of the weapons integration that we have done across the fleet. So in terms of upgrade capability, it has come in well into our capability and into our systems in HAL, and whoever is supporting HAL in these aspects. In terms of sensors and radars, that is the other field where huge work has been done. And as far as Air Force is concerned, and equally so in other services, majority of the radars that are now being inducted are made in India. So I think DRDO needs a big pat on the back for the radar technology to have got established so well, and this being absorbed so well, not only in LRD, but all the production partners. And increasingly, much of this capability is being found in the base is getting set up in the private sector, which is a very, very welcome sign. In fact, some of the smaller radars that we are ordering now, we are doing an open tender with the private sector, and they are coming forward to respond to that. And I see a big paradigm shift in our ability to develop all our radars and networking in-house within the Indian private sector and even the small players. In terms of sensors and weapons, sensors was a little weak area, which we always found that the range that we need or the kind of capability that was required was lacking in our systems. That has now started to change. Our weapon systems, very successful ones, to count a few. I think BrahMos is the lead example, and that integration on Su-30 being indigenous that we started about a decade back is a prime example of what can be achieved with indigenous capability. And the big advantage that indigenous development gives to the Air Force and to any service for that matter is that many of the changes that you want to make once the initial project is over, or when your own companies are dealing with it, many of the shifts in time scale that you want for some of the critical elements, it is so easy to achieve because it is indigenous, because the industry is ours, and when the chips are down, everybody puts the shoulder to the problem at hand and comes out with a solution. For example, in the deployment which happened last year, when we deployed the BrahMos Su-30, we wanted some changes. We wanted hurriedly some more modifications to take place. And because it was indigenous, the timeframes in which we were able to achieve this were unthinkable if it was not an indigenous product or not an indigenous integration. So the kind of capability it gives us to asymmetrically develop into changes and have the capability to modify or evolve is huge. And I think that is one of the factors which gives us strength when you have indigenous product in hand. In terms of other factors, when I talked about briefly on network centric, the entire integrated air command control center that we have developed, ISCCS, is indigenous. We started work on it a decade plus back, and this has become pan India, and we are able to very effectively network our entire airspace. So when we talk about our airspace management, our ability to detect any aircraft and look at it from anywhere in the Air Force and any of the command centers, and be able to communicate through the net, through the data, not on audio or tele, be able to in real time communicate and make changes, that has been achieved. It is a small matter to mention this, but it is such a serious achievement that it changes our entire ability to be able to handle all kinds of contingencies in the air, and our ability to conduct missions in the air in a network environment is based on this. It's not only this, but this has given us the network capability, which again is indigenous on the indigenous capability, that we have networked the entire op capability of the Air Force to be able to plan and proactively in real time make changes and effect whatever is required to be done to increase your efficiency or to project power at different places. So overall, in networking, indigenous has been a big help. The next area that we have worked heavily with the industry is automation. And again, that's an area which has yielded very good result, be it in maintenance infrastructure. That means all our maintenance fleets, every single, in spite of the diverse fleets from Western and Eastern sources, we have put it on a single electronic maintenance management system. And again, it's a huge achievement because of the kind of diverse fleets that we own. So all that has been captured correctly, and we know virtually in real time what is happening there, and our technicians do the whatever inspection they do and whatever they feed in, it is all electronic now. Again, a huge achievement, absolutely done indigenously. Similarly, we have automated our inventory management system, which we call EMOLS. We have linked the inventory to the maintenance management system. The entire Air Force has been linked with for administration matters on e-office, which again has been implemented pan Air Force. All systems developed indigenously, and small teams working from the private sector have achieved this feat in very good time. So again, it talks about our indigenous capability and indigenous strength. In big data and AI, that is a field which bothers the Air Force quite a lot because of the kind of data we handle. Whenever you have a lot of data, be it on our AD networks, be it on the kind of mission planning that you do, there is a requirement of ability to analyze big data. Again, comes in handy when you talk about electronic warfare system or your ELINT system, to have huge data quickly analyzed and give the results before the next mission, so that the next mission has the benefit of whatever has been seen by the previous mission. This again, with the help of very small partners of our indigenous industry, we've been able to develop in-house, and these projects have already been fielded and already showing some exceptional results. So in terms of big data, we have done a lot. In terms of AI and machine learning, again, these are areas which are new. These are areas which have huge potential. Again, these are areas wherever you want these kind of applications, the strength has to lie in indigenous. These are areas where you cannot have foreign companies working, because a lot of information that you need to handle is classified in nature, is something that you won't like to share. And these systems can only be developed when you have Indian partners who are handling this kind of stuff. So this is in AI and machine learning, both for our operational systems, both in our AD setups, be it in our sensor fusion, which is happening in many of our advanced aircraft, and be it in our ability to handle, after we handle the big data, to use AI to do many of the things. Some predictive maintenance philosophy for the maintenance of aircraft, and for some of the other analysis, AI is coming in handy. So these are areas which, again, some of the projects have been exceptionally successful, and some more are in the pipeline. In fact, a lot of projects are in the pipeline, which in due course, I think, will give us big dividends. So in terms of our capability to handle these kind of projects indigenously, there has been a huge change. I will briefly touch upon, as I see, what are the challenges today in our indigenous capability. Indigenous overall capability, if we see, it is not good enough to just have a manufacture in India capability, because that can come by TOT and do. But there has to be a very, very big emphasis on R&D. There has to be big emphasis on innovative methods of developing technology, innovative methods of looking at budgeting and how we are going to handle the projects, especially when the projects are classified in nature. And overall, along with it, setting up advanced manufacturing setups, advanced in terms of basic infrastructure, the latest techniques, so that the product that you get is very competitive, both in time and cost. So one of the major challenges is to keep it competitive in time and cost. And other challenge is to ensure that we get quality product. These are areas that we need to look at in terms of industry. I'm not saying that it is bad in this. These are areas where we need to make further progress, so that when we order projects and do large scale projects indigenously, we don't suffer, like in some of the major projects, we have suffered huge timeline changes. So those aspects is something of a challenge that we need to look at closely, why it is happening and how we should do. The other challenge, and I've spoken of this earlier, is to get all the participants and all the players on the same page, be it DPSUs, DRDO labs, their interaction with private sector, their cooperation with private sector, I would say, and ability to give more and more outsourcing to private sector or MSMEs. And in true sense, setting up a tier 2, tier 3 kind of ecosystem. And with this kind of money that has now come into the aviation sector and the defense sector, dealing with all the systems that I have talked about, and many of these, like I said, overlap with other services, it is very much possible. And the kind of system that I'll just touch upon is our plan for the future. In terms of supply of monies to the ecosystem, it is all there. So the time is now right. It is after last year's clarion call of Honorable Prime Minister that we need to make Atmanirbhar Bharat. And I think the most important pillar of that Atmanirbhar Bharat, as far as we are concerned, is to devote our energies to indigenous capability and get Atmanirbharta in this, which will pay us huge dividends and automatically put us on the right track to handle many of the complexities of the threats that we are going to get in the future, and particularly looking at the north. So in terms of the challenges, I think one of the challenge is that the entire set of players need to cooperate, need to work together. There should be synergistic approach, and there should be openness to outsource and to give projects more and more to private sector and MSMEs, and utilize their efficiencies and flexibilities and speed to speed up the entire chain and the entire system. So at the end of the day, it would be win-win, but this step needs to be taken very effectively. Other than this, the challenges are in terms of innovative budgeting, in terms of ensuring our processes are faster, to to place contracts in place and addressing many of the issues which happens in these high cost sectors, wherein are we sure of placing further orders? Are our policies permitting? How do we take the projects forward? So these are areas that we need to really solve. As far as the future is concerned, it is bright. We are already going towards AMCA, again a huge project with DRDO. Again, there is thought process of getting in special purpose vehicles. Private sector involvement will be huge. The entire ecosystem will feed into this. There are projects dealing with further LCA variants. There are projects for radars, for huge involvement in terms of particularly sensors and weapons. AI and data handling, these kind of automation projects and enabling projects will go on. And the UAV and UCAV is in field which will increasingly become more and more important for combat capability development. And manned and unmanned teaming concepts would take shape, and that is an area which will come in. So huge projects lined up for the sector as such, and this is the time that we all put our energies in the same direction, and it is the time to achieve results. And I'm sure we would be Atmanirbhar in all these aspects. Thank you very much, Chairman, and my best wishes. Thank you, Jai.
We'll be joined by the Air Force Chief in just a moment at this at the GCTC India Today Summit. You've just heard the Air Force Chief speaking extensively about indigenization, the paradigm of Atmanirbhar Bharat, as well as the tech challenges and the path ahead as far as air power is concerned. The Air Force Chief will be taking our questions. In fact, the first questions that we will be getting from the Air Chief on what happened at the Jammu Air Base, the current conundrum over India's biggest military reform, theaterization that has taken place. There have been some important comments from the Chief of Defence Staff, as well as 1 year since the Ladakh standoff actually began. So all of that and much more is coming up in just a couple of minutes as the Chief of the Air Staff joins us live and exclusive for this big interview. Before we go to the Air Chief, let me quickly remind you of what broke on this channel at the summit just a few minutes ago. Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, has spoken for the first time on the Jammu drone attack. Speaking exclusively to India Today, General Rawat said that the character of war has now changed and that hybrid warfare is the future. The Chief of Defence Staff said that there is a need to support boots on the ground with technology, as India is aware of adversaries using drones in this hybrid warfare. General Rawat also said that the armed forces are developing counter-drone mechanisms to prevent similar attacks from across the border in the future. He's the man leading India's air power at a time of enormous flux and turbulence. He took charge months after the Balakot airstrikes and has presided over India's air power during the ongoing Ladakh standoff with China, a warlike situation in our northern sector that has stretched for over a year now. But as the events of the last few days have shown, viewer, the threats to India and Indian airspace can be so small that they could even miss the eye. It's our privilege to be joined live and exclusive by India's Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Rakesh Kumar Singh Bhadoria. Welcome, Air Chief Marshal, sir. Thank you for your time and for speaking to India today. As the Air Force Chief, one is aware, sir, that your mind is occupied by the entire spectrum of air power and security. But I would like to begin with the issue that has taken center stage in the last few days. You know what I'm talking about. So I would like to begin by asking you, sir, to give us your assessment of the drone strikes at the Jammu Air Base. We've heard multiple versions of what may have happened. As the Air Force Chief, your assessment of this particular incident.
Okay, what happened at Jammu was essentially an terrorist act which attempted to target our assets there. The attempt failed, of course. Our assets were not damaged, and there were two explosives used. First one was HE in nature, and the second one was fragmentation in nature, more meant to kill people if they were to come onto that scene. And both failed. There were some minor injuries to two of our personnel. As far as other details are concerned, all the agencies concerned have launched a very detailed investigation, and we have also provided, our members are with them to provide all the details. And we'll wait for the results of the investigation in terms of why and who, etc. take further action as per that.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Actually, given that, the threat from such drones has been, something that India has been cognizant about for a while now, the Air Force and the other services, military establishments have had, some anti-drone defenses as well. How could this attack have happened? We are just trying to understand, even with those preparations, sir.
Yeah, okay. We have gone over this subject in terms of the implications of this kind of capability in the hand of non-state actors, and of course the kind of effect the drone capability and the armed drone capability would have on even future conflicts in a conflict situation. Both have been addressed to a large extent in terms of our planning, in terms of what kind of system we need. Essentially, both the abilities of soft kill and the abilities to have a counter drone system which will have an element of detection and an element of hard kill, which is sustainable in the sense that it should be possible to react in short notice, detect, quickly react, and be able to target it. And that targeting is essentially directed energy kind of targeting, so that the possibility, especially in terrorist kind of situation or acts like what has happened, the possibility of harming our own people is lessened. All those issues have been looked at, and many of these projects were already undertaken, and some have already been fielded, and it's from the indigenous industry. Especially the soft kill options are already in the field. This particular base did not have a critical assets, and we did not have that system fielded here. As far as other methods at such bases are concerned, whenever a drone which is not expected or which is not ours, and it kind of comes into the boundary, there are processes and SOPs in place in terms of addressing it. But this happened that on a night there was no visibility, and it happened from a direction where from the airfield to the perimeter to the target they chose was just about 450 meters. So these are the ground realities. But in terms of our ability to counter such, it's already some ability or has already come, and much more is coming. In fact, another month from now, our deliveries will start for another such system from indigenous sources. And I will not go into the detail, but a lot of work has gone behind it. In terms of hard kill operation options, it is a little more tricky issue. We have worked extensively with DRDO. They have a nearly functional system. It's under trial. Some improvements need to be done in order to achieve the kind of distances we need to effectively target such activities. And that it's just a matter of time before we finish the trials and put it into production. So that element will also come in. Of course, now this drone incident that has happened, we are taking some other measures in many of such bases to ensure that even if such an incident happens at bases where critical assets are not there, we have some systems in place. So it's a question of how we deploy our limited system at the moment, but very soon we will have enough, and we will target. We'll find a way of tackling these threats.
Chief, ever since the Jammu incident itself, there have been drones spotted at other stations, which basically gives the impression that this is going to be a kind of, technological warfare, a new chapter in using drones in an offensive manner at this level. Given that, this is a new reality, and you've just spoken extensively about the defenses that we have, assuming that no defense can ever be 100%, as the Air Force Chief, and given events of the past few years, is the way forward to ensure that these attacks don't take place at all? Are punitive measures also on the table?
No, I would not like to go into what measures are on the table. Of course, all sets of measures would be looked into. So let as far as this incident is concerned, let the investigation get over, and thereafter all these issues would be addressed in terms of whether action is required, not required, and a whole lot of deliberations that need to go into it. As far as the threat from such drones is concerned, both in terrorist application or in a conflict situation, particularly application of this kind of capability which goes into swarm drones capability. So we need to have systems. Firstly, we need to have capability ourselves, and a lot of work has gone into that, so that we will We already have some capability in drones. It's not that we don't have. We already fielded it, and we will have much more. And we also will have such capability with the adversary. So this is a cycle which will continue, but we are giving it a very high importance. It is a critical area. It is a new kind of threat. It has many connotations, and we are looking at it closely to find the right solution and the right mix and handle it effectively.
Air Chief, now I'd like to bring you to the other big story that has occupied mind space, militarily speaking, over the last 1 year, and that is the standoff in Ladakh. We've seen the application of air power and air power's role in it. How would you assess where things are at right now, sir? Because the general sense is, even though some small disengagements have begun, it has become almost a status quo-like situation in Ladakh. There are still large masses of the Chinese forces there. So what has it all finally resulted in, your perspective as the Air Chief, sir?
You've given a fair amount of assessment in terms of current situation. After the initial disengagement which has happened, there is virtual kind of status quo. Many of the infrastructure that was developed, particularly from air aspects, means their surface to air systems, their connectivity, their deployments, except for some aircraft that were taken back from the forward airfield deployments, rest of the infrastructure, if anything, has been strengthened.
Yeah,
has been strengthened. So in terms of infrastructure changes, it hasn't happened in terms of disengagement. In terms of troops on ground, on some friction points, of course, disengagement has taken place. You are aware, talks are on at all levels to handle all the issues concerned with further disengagements and de-escalation finally. But till that happens, we need to monitor the situation. And from air aspects, air power point of view, we are monitoring across very carefully, very closely. We are aware what kind of assets are where and what needs to be done. From our point of view, the deployments and whatever action needs to be taken have been taken in order to ensure that we are there if a situation develops suddenly.
Because it looks like the Chinese, like you touched upon, Air Chief, have been trying to rectify the imbalance as far as airfield infrastructure is concerned. There is a perceived advantage that the Indian Air Force has in this particular area. So it's actually build up its airfields in this area, could be an aggressive gesture. Is that the Air Force's assessment as well?
It is something that they have spent a lot of energy in terms of building infrastructure at many of the airfields. And it is, I would say, instead of aggressive, it is defensive in nature, because they have analyzed as to what all can be hit by us quickly in case the situation requires. But we have to take measures depending upon whatever infrastructure gets developed, and we are taking measures to ensure that we will achieve our aim even with those changes that happen. The other issue is that they have like you said, they are looking at wherever there were deficiencies to cover it. There are many signs of that, apart from infrastructure, in terms of their training, in terms of their other issues, in terms of some other methods that they've done to bring in more efficiency in their air operations. And those are the things that we are watching carefully. Of course, we are doing our own, upgrades in terms of our exercises and whatever is required. Sensors, weapons, new integrations, and actions across the board are being taken. So we are much more capable than we were 1 year back. Not that we have just maintained status quo on our capability.
It's very good to hear that, Air Chief. And now I'd like to bring you to the third big story, that I'd like to touch upon in this interview, in this interaction with you, sir. And that is the issue of theaterization. It's on top of everyone's mind. It's one of the big issues being dealt with by the security establishment. You have your hands full with it. I'm sure, the discussions have been taking place non-stop. It is being billed as one of the big military reforms since independence, and it basically envisages rationalizing our military command structure to shift away from service-specific commands into more theater commands. There is a perspective, Air Chief, that the Indian Air Force in some ways is a spanner in the works. I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's a perspective that this reform is being pushed back on by the Indian Air Force. Is that perspective or is that perception true, sir? And can you tell us why?
That perspective is totally incorrect. Absolutely. We must understand, CDS was a big reform. So CDS has got established. The next biggest reform is integrated theatre command, and it is much more complex. So there is no issue, there is absolutely no question, and I've said it on record many times that we are for establishing of integrated theatre command. But what the issues that we have raised are in our internal discussions, and it is to do with how should we do it. We must get it right. It is the most important reform that has an impact on warfighting. We already have a functional system today. Okay, but when we do integrated theatre command, we should reach a next level of ability to project our comprehensive national power. We should be able to synergize. We should be able to put up a power that is more synergistic and have more flexibility. We cannot have more boundaries. So there are issues in terms of some of the options that are being discussed, and those are the issues we are internally discussing. I would not like to go into media and describe what my concerns are or what has the Air Force said and what somebody else has said. But these are all methods of deliberations. These are all issues that need to be deliberated upon to get it right.
Yeah.
To get it right. It is not an issue of spanner, etc. Absolutely wrong.
I appreciate that.
Come to the media doesn't mean that we are the ones putting panel. Out of question. We are totally committed to the theatre command, but we must get it right. And that is the focus area that with which we are doing all our deliberations. And there are issues that are being looked at, and there are deliberations on between the three services with CDS, and that process is continuing.
Air Chief, you're saying that we must get it right, which is something I appreciate. Are you then saying, sir, that the formula or the template that is being proposed for theaterization at this time is something you don't fundamentally agree with? And if that is so, what are the Air Force's concerns? Because from the outside, sir, for those who aren't fully immersed in the technicalities of it, it's looking like a turf war where the Air Force is concerned about the dilution of its assets and its powers.
You see, I will not go into list my concerns on the media and list what is the proposal. So there is a proposal that is there. There are issues that need to be discussed with respect to those proposals and the nitty-gritties of it. And the important issue is that there are many complex issues when you set up an integrated theatre command, and many of those issues should be upfront looked at very clearly. We should clearly understand how are we going to structure it, sort out the principles, sort out the important issues, and thereafter implement it. So it's not a question of what is a proposal, what are our concerns, and get into this. I can go into those details, but I would not like to discuss those on the media.
Okay.
The important issue to understand is that we are of course for it. It is wrong to say that we are against it, but there are every service has its own doctrine, has the best knowledge of how to employ the capabilities and capacities to get the desired results. And whenever we have a system which is integrated, we must look at that entire, the doctrine and the abilities of the services must be brought in, and it must be a synergized result. So those are the issues, and yes, we are discussing it. These are normal methods of deliberation, and that is what is on. There is no issue to get concerned that we'll not have a solution or something. There is very big amiss. No, it is just part of deliberations.
Okay, but part of constructive deliberations that are taking place. I just wanted to draw you to the interview that we did with the Chief of Defence Staff about an hour ago, Air Chief. One particular comment that he made, I just wanted to see if you want to add anything to that because it is specific. He said that there should be no reservations over a single air defence command, which is part of the proposals, and that the Indian Air Force works in a supporting role for the fighting forces. Is the Indian Air Force comfortable with this particular part of the proposed plan? I'm not asking you to say anything specific, but just to that comment, sir, if you want to add anything to that.
It is not a supporting role alone. The air power has a huge role to play in any of the integrated battle area. It's not an issue of support alone. And there is a whole lot of things that go into any air power air plan that is made. And those are the issues that is under discussion. I would not like to, like I mentioned, comment on what he has said about what has been discussed with you earlier. I'm not sure, but from our perspective, we have some views on what all should be done and what are some concerns. That has been deliberated in-house, and I would like to leave it in-house. I'm sure you will be happy to know the final result rather than have half the result being discussed in the media. Whenever we have the final result, of course, it will come out.
But you're confident that there will be a result and a solution that will be agreeable to all sides.
When you sit and talk, there will always be a result. Yeah. Of course, when you sit and talk, there will always be a result.
Okay. Now, it's been 2 years, Air Chief, since the Balakot airstrikes. How have things changed since then? Much has happened since then. You took over as the Air Force Chief, just a few months after that very tense time between India and Pakistan. Many new assets and weapon systems have joined the Indian Air Force since then. The Indian citizen would like to know what has changed since that time, sir. How better prepared are we for operations of that kind or more?
Oh, a lot has changed. We have put in place training methodologies which have gone into much more, realistic training areas. We have changed the entire, the way we operationally train. And we take the entire Air Force and all our field elements in an integrated manner into this area and train in a realistic training area. So that has been a major change in terms of ability to train realistically. That has given us very good dividends, very good results. Apart from that, there's been a huge effort to upgrade and to speed up the wherever integration was taking place, be it new weapons, be it new capability, be it new aircraft coming, be it improving the serviceability, improving the mission system, and a lot of thrust on indigenous development. For example, Astra missile, you are aware, so I'll mention it, which came up on one aircraft. We are quickly moving to integrate on others. We are quickly moving to integrate on more aircraft. So these are the kind of actions that have happened. It has been a jam-packed 2 years from the point of integrating new weapons and new capability. The other big area is, I think, what we've achieved in networking.
Yes.
Huge changes in automation across the board, in all our operations, maintenance, administration, and all related activities. So our combat capability today, what we are able to put in, especially in terms of advanced weapons. When we look at the adversary in the north, there are some technological capabilities which were much ahead, and we had to move quickly to ensure that we have capabilities in place to be able to tackle those differences. And I must tell you that we have the capability. So these are the issues that we have looked at, and we are much more capable today to handle any of these threats.
Air Chief, I'd like to end this interview on one of your favorite topics, because you are seen as one of the biggest proponents and advocates of self-reliance and Atmanirbhar Bharat in defense. So I'd like to ask you this question, sir. How successful has your vision been as far as Atmanirbhar Bharat is concerned, whether it is to do with the Tejas, whether it is to do with the AMCA, which you touched upon in your comments as well? How satisfied with you with the pace of self-reliance that you had laid out when you took over as the Air Chief?
Overall, to put a generic answer to this, quite satisfied. But there's always a small print, and there are areas that we really can move faster. And those are the areas I think we should look at. The major change is that the industry has responded well, and now the whole ecosystem, so to say, is moving in the same direction. It is one thing for us to put our projects with the industry. It's another thing to have successful projects out of it and get success. And many of the things, I wish I could give more examples, but some of the known things I have given examples. There are many other projects where we have developed capabilities which were unthinkable 5 years back. Unthinkable. Okay, and all that from the indigenous industry. So the satisfaction is there. There are areas that we can move much faster, and I think that is the area of synergy between the various, I would say, pockets of the industrial base, be it DPSUs, be it MSMEs, private sector, and the interaction between them. So there is a lot of synergy that needs to come in. There is a lot of mutual trust building, and actual work that should happen faster. That needs to happen. There is an element of competitiveness and quality issues that needs to be addressed a little more. I would expect that any indigenous product initially goes through this problem. For example, LCA had many issues initially. Now most of those issues are behind us. So we are looking to support. We are understanding in our support. And one more area of concentration was our entire maintenance of the aircraft. A lot of sustenance chain, yearly requirements, we have shifted to indigenous. We have gone in for 3D printing within our BRDs, and 16 of these projects are already under qualification. Unthinkable couple of years back, all from our indigenous industry. So a lot has happened, and I'm sure these things will move faster in the future.
We are big supporters of your Atmanirbhar Bharat and defense vision, sir. And therefore, we'd like to express our happiness that you are satisfied with the way things have been going. And I think that will be one of the big paradigm shifts in military modernization. If most of what we induct into our forces, especially the Air Force, can be made right here in India, developed by Indian scientists and manufactured by Indian industry. I'm going to end on that note, Air Chief, because I know that is your pet topic, something that's very close to your heart as well, and something we'd like to see move forward with greater acceleration. It's been a privilege. Thank you for taking all of our questions here on India Today. The Chief of the Air Staff. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Chief.